Big thanks to Kamado Joe for sponsoring this episode.
This is my longest dry age project ever. Is it any good? Let's find out. It's a long time ago. Well, it's not really a long time. 4 months ago? 3 months?
It's a pretty long time
It's
ago.
March, he and I, we went together to the butcher, and the butcher had something lying there in the fridge, and it caught my eye, and I said, whoa, can I have it? And of course,
We had to take it.
so the idea was just stick it in the dry ager and we'll find a moment to, well, take it out and start working with it. And now we're 120 days in and the steak is still sitting in the dry ager, and I think it's about time we take it out, otherwise there might be nothing left. It's completely dried in and built up an insane crust. It looks almost mummified. The room is getting filled with dry aged fragrance. And it went in, like the card says, it went in on the 7th of March. That is a long, long time. We might have taken this too far. The bottom looks pretty good though. Wow, there's a big gap here.
Oh.
That form, that's typically not, because in gaps like that, you might get some mold. Overall, this looks pretty good, and it smells really good too. It's almost like a beef sausage. It smells actually really tasty. I'm going to be preparing this exceptional piece of meat for Mitchell so we can taste it together, because this is not going to be a steak. This is going to be something really special. It's going to be more of a tasting experience, something that happens, well, maybe just once in a lifetime that you get to experience something like this. And that means I'm not expecting a big fat juicy steak. I'm expecting a taste plateau. So that's what I'm gonna do. First job is to take off all of that pellicle that sits on the outside. The trick is to figure out how much you gotta cut away and how much you can keep. I can already see that right there a little bit of red meat is showing up. That's what I'm looking for. This meat is so tough and so difficult to cut through. I have to use a lot of force to get that pellicle off. It's almost like cutting wood. That's how tough it's become. Looking at how tough this pellicle is, it's going to be extremely difficult to cut my way through it. So I'm going to change up my strategy. I'm going to start by cutting this thing in half. Time to take out the big knife, sharpen it, clean it. All right, there we go. I'm so excited about this. Look at all that force that I need just to get through this piece of meat. This is extremely hard. There we go, almost there. Getting to the steak part. Gotta be careful because the fat is greasing up my hands and making the knife slippery. Last piece, come on. Oh, whoa, this is so much better than I expected. Come on, 120 days. And I just expected like a lot of dark gray areas, but the whole thing worked out so well. And now I can clearly see where I need to cut. Because if we take a look up here, we see some pieces that I definitely do not want to eat. This is most definitely a little bit rotten on top. Now, of course, that's normal when you left your meat in the fridge for 120 days. So don't be terrified by this. You're going to be just fine as long as you cut that away. And what I'm seeing right here, this is the ribeye, so I want to keep all of that. Of course, I'm going to trim off the black parts. I'm also going to take off the bone because it's encapsulated in this black part. So what I'm left with is this beautiful steak. Now I let this oxidate a little bit and it turned bright red again. No, it's not that much. This is about 6 kilograms of beef that turned into 4 steaks of maximum maybe a kilogram, but to notice, quality has gone up significantly. Now, this is a Black Angus ribeye, so it's a good steak already, but now it became so tender. And it becomes tender because all of the fibers start, well, kind of letting go, because that meat is basically rotting. It's just decomposing. And because it's not really rotting in a bad sense, it's just letting go of the fibers, but still staying tasty. Also, the flavors of the steak enhance significantly. And the fragrance that I'm getting at this table is absolutely insane. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn on the Kamado Joe Classic and cook these steaks up. As you can see, I still have a lot of charcoal left from the last cook. Now that's not ideal to have that much charcoal sitting in your barbecue. I would rather have my barbecue be burned out completely, finished, empty, just a little bit of ash at the bottom. But this is the situation, I gotta work with it. I'm gonna go in with my hands and I'm gonna clean up all that ash and it's gonna drop through the holes. And I'm gonna take out these big chunks and now I'm left with charcoal, but it's not too much to cook a steak on. And then hopefully at the end of this cook, I'm left with nothing but ashes. Now of course, I also have to take out the ash drawer, throw away the leftover ashes, and I recommend using an ash tray. And that's great for safety because that way you're sure your bin doesn't burn down or your garden doesn't burn down. Safety first when barbecuing. Fire starters in, and tuck them in there real good, and then light them up. The charcoal's fully lit up, so it's now time to start smoking the meat. I'm gonna put some wood chips in, put the heat deflector in, put the grill grate in on the highest position, and one at the lowest position. And now I have a direct zone and an indirect zone. These steaks have had about 15 minutes to aerate, to oxidize. So all of that extreme dry aged fragrance has gone a little bit, and now we're left with a beautiful ribeye steak to be cooked. I'm gonna set it over indirect heat to smoke. I'm gonna close the lid and the smoke's gonna roll around and catch on to those steaks. Now remember, I just put a little bit of smoke wood in, not too much, just a few little chips that's gonna burn off real quickly, but just enough to give those steaks a little smoke flavor. I'm gonna set the top vent to the first stripe open and open the bottom vent 2 fingers thick. I just got the notification from my phone. The steaks are at a temperature of 52 degrees Celsius and oh, look at that. They picked up a beautiful smoke color and now they're dark red. The fat turned almost brown. Time to take them off and let them cool down a little bit. And the reason for me to put them on the board and not straight over direct heat and to sear them off is that I want the cooking temperatures that have been rising all this time to stop. They need to level out first, so it will probably rise up from 52 to 53 to 54. I'm taking that into consideration. And when it stabilizes, then the steaks are ready to be seared off. And just by opening the lid, I'm creating enough airflow for the barbecue to become nice and hot, and that's gonna be really good for the next. And it all starts by heating up a pan, putting in a lump of butter and letting it melt down. And once the butter melted down, I'm gonna let it continue to cook until the butter turns brown. In French, you call it beurre noisette. I'm also gonna add 3 cloves of garlic and a twig of sage to enhance the flavors. Followed by a little bit of salt and pepper, and our butter sauce is done. Now they cooled down, time to sear them off over direct heat. I want to see some caramelization on that steak. That means the fat needs to render down and become crispy. Let go of that fat, making sure we get a crunchy outside. I'm getting an insane fragrance of dry aged beef. Nuttiness overload here. And look at how easy that sears. Little juiciness left in these steaks. Now, like I said, it's not about how much steak can you eat. It's not about getting a full meal with this steak because that flavor is going to be way too intense. I'm talking about thinking about the flavors like an old Dutch cheese. Look at this. Beautiful old cheese. Crystals build up into it and it's really, really intense. Now you're not gonna put this as is on your potatoes or on your fries. This is something you make a little cut out of, put it on a platter and then serve it with a nice aged wine. From 2016, been aged for a long time. And I'm gonna serve it up, let it breathe a little. I'm gonna do the same for the cheese. Let it breathe a little, cut it up, and this is just gonna break off. Now I got my wine, I got my cheese, I got my beurre noisette, and now it's time to slice into that steak. That steak is super, super tender. Looks really nice. And surprisingly juicy for 120 days dry aged steak. And all it needs now is a little bit of finishing salt, some fresh ground black pepper, and that beurre noisette.
Cheers.
Ooh,
That's good.
but it's strong, right?
Ooh, that's perfect.
Now let's try the cheese and see if it pairs with the wine.
Ooh,
Strong flavors, nice old Dutch cheese.
those
Then
are some bold flavors.
really strong, heavy flavors. And I'm expecting this steak to do absolutely the same. There we go.
Cheers. Whoa.
That's really good. This is really fantastic. I mean, I'm getting smoke flavors. I'm getting really strong beefy flavors.
Yeah.
It's super, super intense. We got a nice crust on the inside, on the outside.
Man, the intensity from the dry age is really there,
It's really, really good.
but in a very, very good way. And I was a bit unsure because it's been 120 days.
120 days, 4 months old.
Yeah, but
This is
still, this is amazing.
This is a really, really good steak. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I would love to know if you guys would try an experiment like this. Are you up for it? Do you want to get that steak dry aged for 120 days? Are you willing to go that far? And then, would you also appreciate the flavors of how beefy this is?
I think you should try this at least once.
Let us know in the comments and give us the big thumbs up. Hope to see you guys next time. Until then,
Eet smakelijk.
and keep on grilling.
And
Yes.
cheers.
I know.
That's good stuff, Eva.
She
That's
knows.
good stuff.
She knows it's good.